Hi, my name is Eddie C., and welcome to my Positive Podcast. I'll bring you positive stories of people from all walks of life because everyone has a story to tell. Hi, everybody. This is Eddie C., and welcome to MPP, my Positive Podcast. Today, I got a very special guest on here, and we're doing a new series because this is the first video podcast that we're doing. And I'm very happy to have as my first guest, Miss Pia Pauwels. Nice to meet you.
Very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, Pia's she's a writer. She's been to the States, I've heard. You've had quite a life behind you, and you're still going strong, as we say.
Let's hope so.
So, Pia, can you tell me a little bit about your background? Where is it? Where you're originally from? And
I'm born here in Antwerp, in Deurne, actually, which is like a district of Antwerp, in 1972. So, the year of the crisis, of the energy crisis. So, and then I spread my wings early in life. When I was like 18, I went to the States for about 1 year. I lived with a family in California, near Palo Alto. Was an American father, Japanese mother, so I learned a little bit of Japanese. Right. She also taught me to play the piano. It's Japanese, very musical. And then I came back, studied tourism, and then I started flying for an airline. Really loved that. Flew for 10 years.
You literally spread your wings.
Yeah. And then I went flying for about 10 years. I met my husband, second husband actually. Mm-hmm. And then we moved to France. And that's where my first book originated, Mice in the Bed. It's a story about our life there, written down as a novel. So there are a lot of fun stories in there, also a little bit of drama. And yeah, you have to read it to know the whole story. And then we came back, and why you can read in the book as well. And now I'm here, back hometown, back to Belgium.
Well, can you tell me a little bit about the time that you were in America?
Yeah.
Because starting out as a child, of course, who were your biggest influences to get you started to writing?
My influence was my mother and my auntie. She died very young. 46. She died of cancer, breast cancer. I started seeing her decline because it was really like really a long time ago, more than 40 years ago. So it wasn't as today. So okay. I could really see her suffer. She at a certain point, just before she died, they put her head fixed with bolts, with metal bolts on her body. So it was a really, really, really. Gross thing to see, it was really bad, very agony, Mm-hmm. But she was a beautiful writer. She wrote poets, very beautiful poets. She was a painter, and then as well there was my mother. She wrote short stories. She won prizes for that. But as it went back then, when you got married, you had children, but right. You didn't do any frivolous things like writing, so she had to stop. So when I came back from France, I was feeling a bit sad and melancholic, and I started to write our story from all the happy times and the bad times, and I put them in this book, Mice in the Bed.
Mice in the Bed. Wow, that's quite a title. How did you come on that title for this particular book?
The titles are the most difficult thing to write. Sometimes I get a title during the writing, or I create them when everything is finished. Mice in the Bed came to me right while I was writing, because at a certain moment, when we were there in the beginning, we were renovating an old stable, a cow stable. So the cows moved out and we moved in, and a lot of hay. And at a certain moment, we were sleeping, and the mice fell through the little tiny gaps of the wooden ceiling, and they fell in the bed. So we had mice in our bed. So that's how I came up with the title. And it's a funny title as well, because there's a lot of fun stories as well in the book. A lot of tearjerkers as well, but funny things as well. So.
Okay, well that's great. It's very nice that you included your husband in the book.
Yeah. My husband is in the book. In the second book, my first husband as well. Not in a good story, but it was an abusive relationship. So the second book is about domestic abuse.
And the title of that?
The Sound of Silence. In English, you could say The Sound of Silence. Hoor de stilte spreken. So hear the silence speak, because, you know, sometimes words that are not said are as equally important as the words that are said. You know, the silence can really speak. Like, for instance, if there's a coffin coming into the funeral, everybody goes silent.
Well, as they say, you know, silence can be the strongest word spoken.
It is. It is.
You know.
So that's about the second book. It's a very spiritual story, but it's also a very frivolous story as well, because there's a lot of spicy scenes. It's about a woman in her 40s that ends up having an affair, betraying her husband. But she doesn't do that just because she's a bad person. She does it because she is so lonely and she feels so bad. She's on the verge of a depression that she needs a way out. She needs to feel alive. She needs to be happy before she does something to end her life. So that's the story of the second book. So there's also a little bit of humor, a lot of drama, but also a lot of humor as well. Because I like humor. You know, it's without laughter, there's no life.
Okay. Can you tell me what a typical Pia Pauwels day is in the land of book writing?
Well, I'm not a morning person, so I don't wake up before 9, and then I wake up very slowly. You know, I just stumble about in my pajamas with a little cup of tea. I watch a little television, take my breakfast in front of the television with my cats beside me. We both sit there, and then my day starts. And then my first thing I do is I read. I read in a book, not my own, but somebody else's. Mostly people I've met on other signing sessions, and I bought their book because I liked the person and the book looked well. So I read their books, good books, very nice books, because we have fabulous writers in Belgium and in the Netherlands. So I read a few stories, not too many. I try not to read more than an hour, and then it brings me in the writing mood, and then I start writing myself. And I'm a very structural writer, because you have writers who just start writing. They go with the first line and there they go. I'm not like that. I need to be very organized. So I have a complete schedule of every chapter, everything that goes in the chapter, and I really use the basis of how a novel should be written, you know. So I've read number of books, American books, because I really like American books, because when I was in the States, I studied at Foothill College. Right. And what I learned here, the big difference between American education and Flemish education is American education is really practical, hands-on. Belgian education is a lot of theoretical exposés, you know, the history and the stories behind, and all the professors who had their definitions of how everything should be, but nothing hands-on. In the States, everything is hands-on. So when I buy books about writing, I buy American books, because they really say, this is what you put in the first chapter, and this in the second chapter, and so on. So you really learn how to do the suspense arc and the endings and the story behind the persons. You really learn how to develop all those things. So that's what I do. I first put everything on a schedule from the first chapter until the end, and then of course when I write gradually, I adapt a few things, I change a few things, or things that come into my mind, and it becomes a real Pia story. But I'm a very structural writer.
Okay, and is that something that you've had always as a child, or is that something that developed as you got older?
It's because my mother and my grandmother were very nervous people. So from, let's say, I'm born like a very nervous person, and I didn't like that. I didn't like all those nervous things around her and the hectic stuff, and I realized that if you're organized, you're much calmer. So early on, I try to take my time. For instance, when I schedule things in a day, I take my time. I'm not gonna put too much things on the same day, because I know if I end up with not enough time, I'm gonna get completely nervous. So I try to avoid that. So I've learned to be very organized early on, and that calms me down. So I think that's why my writing as well is very structured.
Yeah, well, we always say, you know, you need to work to live and not live to work. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's very important as
I
well.
like living. I like little nice foods, drinking, traveling. I like the Italian way. The how's it called? Dolce. Yeah.
Everything capradina.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned something about your piano playing.
Yeah.
Did that start as a child, or is that something that you still practice yourself?
My grandfather was a music teacher. So
Okay.
he started in my old school, which was bombed during the Second World. It was a Second World War. It was an old boys' school back then, and he was a music teacher there, and he started a music class. And later, when I was a young girl, I went to the same school, which was by then for boys and girls. And back then, we had what's school radio, and every Wednesday afternoon, we recorded a little lesson for the teachers that they could play in the class. So you just put the radio on, and there was a music class, and that was actually us, our music teacher, not my grandfather anymore, because he was retired many years before, but the music teachers. And then we sang songs, and they had a little book, and the school could buy the workbook, and then the teachers only had to put on the radio, and there it was, the music lesson. And it was especially for those schools who couldn't afford to have an actual music teacher of the piano or a guitar, because not every teacher could do that. So that way, everybody could have an actual good music lesson. So my grandfather was a music teacher, and he had a beautiful piano, a mahogany piano with like little candles,
with candles,
on top. It was beautiful. It went during the World War. It got into the cellar to protect it, and later on I took it with me to France. But unfortunately, I had to leave it behind. But I never actually learned the piano from him, because by the time I was old enough to learn the piano, he had like tremor disease.
You started.
So he couldn't. He was losing his mind as well, so he couldn't teach me anymore. So I never learned the piano till I got to the States, and the Japanese lady, she taught me. So that was really nice. So afterwards, I played on his piano, but then unfortunately, I had to leave it behind in France. So.
But do you still play a little bit?
No, I don't, because I don't have the piano anymore.
Okay, but never thought about picking it up again?
Yes, all the time. But there are so many things I like to do, I love to do, but there's not enough time, because like I said, I'm not a morning person. I'm like going slow. So not enough hours in my day, let's say.
Yeah, well, time will usually take over at a certain point if we're not careful. I know from my own experiences now. I more or less retired a few years ago. But musicians never stop.
No, luckily.
And writers never stop either.
No, it's always in the mind.
But I since about 3 months, I picked up a guitar and started writing and learning some chords and composing on that. It's given me a whole new avenue of how I look at my own music. So it can be something enchants me. I always find music is a very good way of stimulating your other activities that you do.
And apparently studies have showed that it makes you happy. It could, people who have depression, they could cure them, because music makes you happy. Even just humming, apparently, if you feel bad, just humming will make everything good again.
Well, you see with older people, a lot of times then when they're starting to have Alzheimer's,
they still remember music.
They can remember the songs.
They can even sing. I just only yesterday on Instagram I saw this little video of an old man who had dementia, was completely lost, couldn't even remember his wife's or his children's name. And there was an opera singer, and she started singing, and he just picked in and he started singing very beautiful. He just remembered all the words, and he sang beautiful. So music is amazing.
Well, let's get to your newest book, which is sitting here,
Lost in the Past.
Lost in the Past. Can you tell me something about that?
Yeah, it's actually based on a true story. The book itself is fictional, with fictional characters, but it's based on a true story. It's about the kidnapping of the chauffeur of a diamond guy here in Antwerp. Leister Glas was a diamond... diamantair, we say in Dutch.
Diamond handler,
Diamond handler, And his chauffeur, François Apers, got kidnapped by mistake, because obviously he was in a nice suit, and the kidnappers thought that he was
Right, I read something about that. Yeah.
So they took him instead of the. So of course, the kidnappers weren't happy because they actually wanted a lot of money, but the diamond guy wasn't ready to pay for his chauffeur.
For his chauffeur,
So,
right.
but it for me, when my father-in-law, he used to be the one that was in charge of the whole onderzoek.
The investigation.
The investigation, yeah.
Right.
So, and he told me about it, and I thought back then I thought it was funny that the kidnappers made a mistake and took the chauffeur. So I thought, well, that's a nice hook for a story.
Right.
So he told me more and more about it, especially about paying of the money, the ransom, and it was like in a Hollywood movie. They placed a note behind the mirror of a well-known bistro here in Antwerp, which people say, but that can't be true. But it was actually true. They placed ads in the newspaper to communicate with the kidnappers back then in the 70s, and they had notes behind the mirror. And so when they had to do the dropping, they thought we have to drop it over there, but it wasn't like that. They put a note back there, and they had to go to another place, and then there was another note, and they had to go to another place. And so they drove around all evening to finally they got somewhere to drop the ransom note, which was in a big bottle of water, and it was filled with diamonds.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
And after they dropped the bottle, they got a really bad feeling. Both of the policemen, they got a really bad feeling. So they made sure they got out of there right away, and afterwards, when they got the kidnappers, they told the police that they were actually ready with Kalashnikovs to kill both policemen.
Wow.
So my father-in-law and his colleagues were very lucky that they had this gut feeling and that they escaped. So I had a similar feeling, and it's also in the book. When I was younger, I had a similar feeling it's really funny because it's even in the police report. It was in a winter evening, so it was really dark, really early, and my father dropped me off, and before I went in, I got really scared, but really, I couldn't move, and I was like, why? Just go inside the house. But there was something that prevented me from entering the house, and I remember looking through the glass and listening, and there was nothing visible, so I said, Pia, just open the door and go in. So really, with my heart pounding, I went inside the house, and there was nothing there until I came to the door, and the sequence you're gonna read in the book.
All right. Well, we'll leave that for the reader.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I know your books are at the moment written in Dutch.
Yeah.
But are they going to be available as a translated form in English or
the
different
first one
languages?
is already translated. It just have to go out in the world, but I already translated. The second one I find very difficult to write in English because it's the first one is just stories, so you just have to tell the funny stories in English. But the second one, it's for me, it's very personal, and it's not easy to find the right words in English because obviously I'm not an English person.
Maybe
I'm not English. Yeah.
Maybe somebody from the outside.
Yes, maybe you.
Yeah. We can talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a few more questions before we close off. Today's society, we have like a lot of youth with, and we have a very digital society. We were talking about how it used to be kids would get a little Spain in their mouth if they had to. They cried.
Pacifier.
And then pacifier now has become a smartphone.
Yeah. It is.
Or a tablet or something.
Yeah.
What is your view towards the education system now, as far as book reading is concerned?
Yeah, it's declining. It goes, less and less people are reading actually. Although some people say that it's getting better again because people are getting, there's becoming a reaction against that. But normally, as far as we can tell, less and less people are reading because obviously when I was a young child there was no television during the day, so all we could do was pick up a book and read. There was nothing else to do, or go outside and play with our friends. But if there were no friends, or it was rainy or cold, we picked up a book, even if it was just like a comic book. You picked up a book. Nowadays there is so many other things children can do, and picking up a book seems to be the lesser choice, which is really bad because of that their education is going back as well, because they don't know how to write or to read or to they make spelling mistakes, bad conjugations because of the lack of reading.
Right.
And my mother, when I was a child, my mother used to read every night to go to bed, and I loved going to bed because my mother, she could read so beautifully. She read her own stories, or she read just books, Disney, whatever. But I loved to hear the stories. I guess that part of that made me a writer as well, because I loved hearing all those stories.
I got two more questions for you. The first question is that what is your future as far as a writer? What's going to be your next story? Do you have already some ideas?
Yeah, my next story that's already on paper, that I'm already started, is about the disappearance of MH370, the Malaysian Airlines flight that disappeared and is still gone. Nobody knows where it is. Mm-hmm. It's very amazing because obviously I'm a flight attendant, so I know planes don't disappear. So even back then, when I heard that the plane disappeared, I was like, planes don't disappear. So for me, there's a big story behind there, and I'm trying to write a real suspense thriller about that. So that's because mainly not because I want to know what happened, because also when a plane goes down, all those people that died, especially as well the crew. So I write a story, and I want to give those people who passed away, I want to give them a voice and a face, so that when people write about it, they're not just numbers, they're not just the 237 persons that are gone. I want people to see and feel the pain of the families that are left behind.
That's quite beautiful.
Yeah.
My last main question is, of course, this show is about positivity.
Yeah.
And how would you sum yourself up and your work up to create a positive energy for everybody that's around you?
Well, like I said, I like to have fun in my life. I like to laugh, and I try to put a little bit of laughter in every book. Mice in Bed is a lot of laughter. In the second one, still quite some drama, but a lot of laughter as well. In this book, less, because it's a suspense novel, and they say laughter kills the suspense. But still, even so, there's still a little bit of laughter, because I made the main character. Normally, it's like the hero, but in my story, it's not that big hero. It's like a normal girl, like you and me, I can't say, but a normal person like you and me. And she's a little bit a clumsy person, and her clumsiness brings a little bit of laughter in the story.
Okay, so to sum that up, if you were saying that as a positive, what we call a positive person, your writing, via your writing and your whole presentation of it, this is your message to try to bring more positivity into.
Yes, laughter. I really like laughter. I think I even heard that if you feel down and you laugh out loud, you feel better. It's like singing. When you sing, even humming, everything becomes good again. And it's the same with laughing. So even in my books, even if it's suspense of drama, there's always have to be a little bit of laughter.
Fantastic. And who knows, maybe my book will be
will
be co-written with you.
Yeah, perfect. Let's do that.
Alrighty. I'd like to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Sharing your story.
Thank you. Yeah.
And you can see that you're very outgoing, happy, positive person. Your writing puts a smile on my face, and the way you speak about it. And I'm sure for my listeners and viewers, it will also.
Yeah, I hope
nice.
all my American friends can finally read and hear something about my books. Yeah. So that's gonna be nice.
And when that information is ready, please get in contact with us, and I'll have you on the show again when the next book is ready.
Hopefully, I hope so. But it's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the show. I want to put a special shout out and thanks to the members and the staff here at the Pilgrim House here on the Pilgrimstraat in Antwerp for their service and giving us this lovely location to do this show. I also want to thank my guest one more time, Ms. Pia Pauwels, for coming on and sharing her life experiences, telling us about her books and future plans. And remember, a little bit of love, a little bit of humor, and a lot of faith in yourself will get you a long way. Until that time, stay positive.